we've never dealt with like the complexity of the modern world before. Technology, like how interconnected everything is, how rapidly everything's changing, the complete overload of information that's entering our awareness every single day. These are new challenges, and these are the challenges that we're expected to deal with, because the basic challenges have all been taken care of, right? Like even if you're a homeless person living under a bridge, like you can, I could still argue that you can still go into a shop, you can get some like cash, and you can go into a shop and you can buy food and you can eat it. There's no like hunting and gathering required, or even if you don't have a home, like you can still find shelter relatively easily, and people that do have abundance can contribute to like keeping you safe and keeping you fed, and like even there's help available at all these different levels. But it's almost like we're missing out on the steps. It's like being expected to be able to walk before you crawl is a very simplistic way to state this. And what I've found a lot of success with young people when they've been able to create a challenge for themselves just based around like the basic human survival kind of elements. And I did it myself as well. Like when I drove around the country, this is when I realized how rewarding and enriching an experience like that really is. Like when you've got to kind of survive. Like you get in have you ever been in a life and death situation? Have you ever had to save your own life? Have you ever run out of water in the desert? Have you ever had no food and had to like figure out what's safe to eat in a strange environment? Like all of these things, like it's like we're just missing all of this connection to who we are, because we're not practicing any of the earlier steps anymore. We're just like born into a world that's like, okay, program them as fast as you can, get them out there doing the things that we need them to do, because we've built this entire crazy system and it can't function if we don't all participate and play our roles. Like, and before you even have decided if you want to participate, or if this system that you're being born into is good for you, you're already like sort of programmed into it, and off you go, and expected to be able to make sense of it all. And I just think there's so much power in returning to like real basic stuff. You don't have to live in a ute for like a year or do anything so dramatic, but even camping trips on the weekends were always good way to get back to like basics, like learn how to start a fire, like learn how to catch a fish. Like that's a thing that I did as a child that was valuable. Just learning how to do stuff. Like if I could go back and like if I could have a chat with my mum and dad like now from the future, like send a message back to my mum and dad who are just like, mum's just giving birth to me, I would say like, do less for me, like make me do shit, like challenge me, make things difficult, put me in difficult situations, like stretch me, show me what I'm made out of. Like don't try to protect me, don't try to like give me so much love in the form of like acts of service. Like, mum, you don't have to do any of that. Show me how to look after myself. Like, be present and like available, and answer my questions to the best of your ability, and explore things with me. But if anything, I want more challenge. I feel like that's what so many of us are needing. And now another angle that we could look at this issue from. Like, I'm just making all of this shit up in the present moment. This is just my video journal. I'm just expressing my thoughts and feelings. It's not intended to be advice or guidance. But another angle that we could look at this whole issue from is, as this crazy modern society continues to evolve, our time for each other seems to be shrinking. Like, I am actively avoiding losing myself in modern culture, modern society, and making sure that I free myself from as much of the programming as possible. But I see people working longer and longer hours, and having 2-3 jobs, and just to maintain and sustain a lifestyle, like have the 3-bedroom house and the 2 cars and look after the kids, get them to the best schools, everything, because that's what's expected, while we're also living in a period of like the most ridiculous inflation of all time. Probably not all time, but like this global pandemic shit. Like, it's just ridiculous what we're, and the state of the world, and like the economy, even if you don't fully understand it, it's just out of control. And we're all, like, by working 2 or 3 jobs and continuing to like race against this machine that we created, we're really perpetuating the problem. Like, we're continuing to cause the problem, make it worse. Because if everybody's prepared to work 2 or 3 jobs, and and destroy their health and relationships to maintain the status quo, like, that becomes the norm. And there's even, the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because there's even less time to connect with one another and get back to these basics that I'm talking about that are missing. So these days, like, I'm really, really generalizing here, but like, parents are so busy just trying to maintain and sustain the lifestyle that they have sort of promised themselves and promised their families, that the screens are raising the kids. Like, every kid's got a phone now, an iPad, a laptop, whatever, and just apps, programs, video content. Like, we're just inundated with data and information and programming, and because it's so cheap to immerse ourselves in this digital world through these screens, it seems practical. It seems like the sensible thing to do. Like, let the kids entertain themselves with technology. Like, we live in a technological era. It's good for them. They need to be connected to it, because this is the way that the world's going. Like, everybody is using technology more and more. All of the most high-paying jobs require you to be able to understand technology. There's so many justifications for this. Yet, what are we sacrificing as we're allowing screens to raise the children of the next generation? And we're also immersing ourselves in it. Like, the screen has become a substitute for so many of our addictions. We go, oh yeah, scrolling Facebook's not as bad as all the other things that I used to do. And then what happens anyway for so many people? The addictions creep back in with it. So next minute you're drinking a full bottle of wine while you're scrolling on Facebook on a Friday night, because you can't afford to, or you believe that you can't afford to go out and do something meaningful. Like, or yeah, just what is happening, like, is the big question. And like, who is anybody to judge it or say like what direction it should go in? I'm just looking at myself and thinking about like what I would like, and I would like to be more in touch with like the basics again. I would like to be more in touch with nature. I want to create more time to connect with people and connect with myself and enjoy this planet. Like, remember, we're on a planet full of like biodiversity and even undiscovered species of plants, animals, and fungi. Like, there's like an ocean full of mysteries. Like, and then beyond this planet, there's a universe, like, but all of that kind of in a way, it feels like it gets lost when we just shrink everything down and try to live in this like weird technological age where the basics are lost. So I went in a really weird direction with this. I was trying to make the argument that like what we really need is more challenge in our lives, but then I guess I kind of started to realize how many distractions there are to prevent us from doing that. And even when I've brought these things up and created conversations online where I'm saying like what people really need is to challenge themselves, and all of these people are leaving comments and messages objecting, saying like life's hard enough as it is, there's so many struggles. Like even in that moment I could say like we're just on the screen and you know we're not actually addressing any real issues in our lives. It's easier to just become a critic of life rather than a participant. And as well, like it's kind of terrifying to admit to yourself that you have no survival skills, you have no like basic human skills. Like if you do decide to challenge yourself and go on a bit of a quest and see what you're made out of, like if you're starting from a place where you actually don't have any skills, like that could be very overwhelming. But there's like courses and things that you can do all over the country, probably all over the world. Learn about bush tucker, learn how to make weapons like for hunting, learn how to make basic survival equipment, shelter, keep yourself safe, keep yourself hydrated, find all different kinds of water sources, like, and you can pick those kinds of things up here and there, just hanging around the right kinds of people as well. And you know, on the other side of this, as if you do go and explore like being a part of nature again, like being a mammal that lives on this planet, re-identify with that part of yourself, there is a cool thing that happens as you learn more and more and you get back to what you really are, where it's actually, there's a lot of abundance. You start to realize like, okay, there's food everywhere, there's water everywhere. Maybe there won't be in the future because everybody's on their screens ignoring the complete devastation of natural ecosystems that's happening all the time. But that's a whole nother issue, isn't it? But yeah, surrounded by food, surrounded by water, everything you need, shelter even, like it's all here, it's all available. Different kinds of ecosystems. It's like if you can survive in like the dry bushland, it's going to be different to the dense subtropical rainforest, and that's going to be different to the desert, and that's going to be different to the ice. But like that's all part of the fun, isn't it? But if anybody who's familiar with a particular ecosystem, they're going to see that ecosystem as abundant, full of food, full of water, full of all of the things that we need to survive. That's cool. That's something to get excited about. And I guess if you have never connected with anything like that before, the world can seem like a really hostile, uninviting place where, like, you know, everything's gonna kill you. Like, you'd be looking at all the plants and things that are actually food, thinking like it's probably all poisonous. You know, you'd be looking at all the animals like that. All these animals are probably predators, or they've got poison or venom, or, you know, just until you know otherwise, like the world does seem like a hostile place. And I think even getting back in touch with nature and realizing that the world's not going to hurt you, that brings a deep sense of peace in itself. Like just being able to go for a wander through the wilderness, feeling like you're safe and like you live on a planet where it's full of abundance and and just good stuff, like to experience beautiful things like magic all around you. That's a totally different experience to like trying to stay in your tiny apartment on your screens all the time, go to the job that you hate, and like never go outside because you're so disconnected from it, thinking like the wilderness is unsafe. Like, no, the wilderness is where we lived forever. Is where all of the things that we need naturally occur. You don't need to have a job and get money and then go and pay the money to a person to get the thing. Like, it's like nature naturally produces all of this stuff, and then we like take it out of nature and process it and turn it into products. And then so for a young person who hasn't had much of an education about what nature really is, like the stuff on the shelves barely resembles the organic matter that originated these things that we're purchasing, you know? I'm not like a huge nature hippie or anything. I am a regular dude. I have my job, I have my little box as well. I'm playing the same game that everybody else is, but I know what's available, and I know that like I can also return to simpler times and simpler experiences, and that brings me a deep sense of peace. And I don't know how that connects to my original point that what we're really looking for is a challenge. I guess what I'm really saying is the thing that you think is so challenging is actually far easier than the struggles and troubles that you're entrapped within right now. Like if you really feel like life's hard and all fucked up, and you know you got bills to pay and you can't afford it, and your lifestyle's out of control and everything's not working, like I guarantee you, like getting away from all of that is going to feel simpler. Or like, I don't know, what I really want people to understand is that nothing has to be the way that it is right now. Like, you don't have to finish the game that you're playing. And what I mean by that is, like, if you hate your job and your living arrangement's not how you like it to be, your relationships aren't how you want them to be, like, at any moment you can choose to change all of it. And that's the thing that's scary, but it's also the thing that's going to make everything better. And I think the bigger the shifts that you can make, the faster you're gonna free yourself, and the faster you're gonna learn like how okay you are, like how abundant this world is. It's not so hostile. Like you can really feel trapped and like the whole world is hostile when you haven't made enough changes for a really long time. If like you've just been stuck in a situation where you're not assertive enough and you're just totally agreeable, letting the world push you around, letting your boss push you around, working in a job you hate, all your relationships and your family, it's all riddled with unresolved conflict because everybody's too afraid to express themselves because they don't want to deal with the fallout. Like, all these things are just like such arbitrary issues. Once you realize like you can just walk away from all of it. And it sounds so radical to some people and so extreme, like almost like dangerous. But again, it's because you've got that idea that the whole world is this hostile, negative place. And maybe even for a while after you try to change your life, you might continue to find a lot of hostility and negativity and discomfort, but you'll start to realize, like, once you subtract yourself from the situation where you think all the problems are coming from, then you start on your own little journey and you start to explore new possibilities, and you find that there's still discomfort and hostility and all of those things. Then you start to realize, like, oh, maybe I'm responsible for some of this. And that's like one of those really powerful moments as well, when you start to realize, like, oh, I'm creating this, I'm creating situations that are riddled with conflict. And you can start to understand how to unravel your identity from these other stories that you've involved yourself in, and then you can start to change who you are as a person very actively and deliberately, and then create something new for yourself. But it all starts with the willingness to leave what's familiar to you. And yeah, I guess the thing that's the most fascinating to me is it's the people that are struggling the most, and they've got the hard, like they'll tell you a story and they'll make it sound really negative and hard and hostile and just like the worst. And they're the ones that are saying like, don't tell me to like change up my life, like, because I can't do it because everything is so bad. It's like, if it's so bad, you should be the first person in line for a new life. Like, what are you doing? Like, let's anything would be better by the sounds of it. Some of these stories that you hear, like, it's not going to get any worse. Like, roll the dice, like move to a random square on the board, like see what happens. But it's so easy for me to say that from a position where like I've already done it a bunch of times. And I guess that's what the motivation is for expressing this, is like, I see it, I see people stuck, and I'm like, free yourselves. And then they're like mad at me. Like, don't tell me to make my life better because my life is hard. And I've been that person too, I guarantee it. Guarantee it. So this is a moment where I'm like I'm looking way back, at like a way earlier version of myself and kind of like cheering him on, like, just be free. And it, you know, the way that it's being expressed, it sounds like I'm telling other people how to live their lives, but I'm just expressing what I'm thinking and feeling. If you get anything out of these videos, please share them with anybody else you know who may benefit. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear what you're thinking and feeling in the present moment, what surfaced for you while I was talking about this. And check out kylives.com if you get a chance.